It Can't Be True by D.K. Braille Publishing, with incredible tactile comparisons. How big is the sun? The average diameter of the sun is 864,337 miles. It is more than 333,000 times the mass of the Earth. There are some tiny dark spots on the sun's surface. These are cooler patches called sunspots. More than 15 Earths can fit inside the largest sunspots. You could fit 109 Earths across the diameter of the sun. How big is the moon? The moon's diameter is 2,159 miles, 1/4 the size of the Earth's. Its surface area is 13 times smaller. 4 moons could line up across the Earth's equator. If there were no gaps between them, 50 moons could fit inside of our planet. It would take 80 moons to weigh the same as the Earth. Earth is much heavier because its core is made of solid iron and as wide as 2 moons. How big is Jupiter? Jupiter is the biggest planet in the solar system. It has a diameter of 89,888 miles, which is enough for 11 planet Earths to line up across. If Earth were as small as a marble, Jupiter would be the size of a soccer ball. More than 1,320 Earths could fit inside of Jupiter. How long would it take to fly to Neptune? It would take a plane flying at 560 miles per hour, 570 years to travel from the Sun to Neptune, which is the farthest planet in our solar system. It takes 43 minutes for the sun's light to reach Jupiter, but 555 days to reach the edge of our solar system. How fast is light? Light takes time to get from place to place. In space, light travels at 671 million miles per hour. That is 186,282 miles in 1 second. The New Horizon probe is the fastest ever spacecraft, but even that travels at 18,000 times slower than light. In just 1 second, a beam of light would travel around the Earth 7.5 times. What's the biggest country? Russia. Russia stretches across 2 continents and covers 11.5% of the Earth's land surface. It's 5,996 miles across. Russia is nearly 2.5 times wider than Australia and more than 7 times the area of Algeria. Australia is the 6th biggest country and also a continent. Algeria is the biggest country in Africa and the 10th largest in the world. How high is Mount Everest? The peak of Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world. The peak of Mount Everest, which is the highest mountain in the world, is 8,848 meters, which is 29,029 feet above sea level. Mount Everest is 10 times taller than the world's tallest building, Dubai's Burj Khalifa. Measured from its base on the ocean floor, Mauna Kea in Hawaii is actually taller than Mount Everest. Oh wow. It is about 30,000 feet tall, but it is less than half of the mountain is above sea level. So even though it's 30,000 feet tall, half of it is below sea level. Both Mount Everest and Mauna Kea are dwarfed by Mount Olympus Mons on Mars, the highest mountain in our solar system. Olympus Mons is 14 miles high. See, Olympus Mons is huge compared to them. How much water is there? The world contains 1.3 billion cubic kilometers, or 332 million cubic miles of water in its oceans, rivers, lakes, groundwaters, clouds, and the ice in glaciers and ice caps. For every bathful of salt water on Earth, there are 4 teaspoons of fresh water on Earth. How big is the largest lake? The largest lake by volume is Lake Baikal in Siberia. It contains around 1/5 of the world's fresh water. Together, the North American Great Lakes cover an area that's 7 times greater than Lake Baikal. But because Lake Baikal is so deep, it holds more water. It holds 6,238,500 billion gallons of water. How tall was the tallest wave ever surfed? In 2013, American professional big wave surfer Garrett McNamara surfed a wave said to be 100 feet tall off the coast of Nazaré, Portugal. There was once a tsunami reported off the coast of Alaska that was 17 times higher than that surfed wave. That's crazy. How big was the largest hailstone? The largest hailstone ever known fell in Vivian, South Dakota in a storm on July 23, 2010. It was 18 inches across. The South Dakota hailstone was 3 times the width of a tennis ball. The lumps that covered the hailstone are results of smaller hailstones colliding with each other and sticking together. How much air does a person breathe? Based on a lifespan of 70 years, the average human breathes around 9.7 million cubic feet of air. A lifetime's breathing uses as much air as would fill 95 to 100 hot air balloons. What has the biggest eye? The colossal squid, a little-known species of squid, has eyes up to 11 inches across. The squid and human eyes shown here are slightly smaller than life size. Experts think the colossal squid might have eyes as big as a beach ball. What has the biggest teeth? African elephants have the biggest teeth of all animals, as well as huge front teeth called tusks. They have enormous chewing teeth to crush vegetation. What is the biggest living thing? California's giant sequoia trees are the most massive and heaviest life forms. They can weigh up to 2,105 tons. This famous giant sequoia is called the President. It is 3,200 years old and still growing. However, giant sequoias are not the tallest trees. California's coastal redwoods can grow more than 115 meters or 379 feet tall. That's fascinating. I wonder why this is the most. Oh, because it's the heaviest. That's cool. So there are taller trees, but this one is the heaviest. What's the biggest animal? The largest animal on the planet is the blue whale, measuring 100 feet. It is the biggest animal to ever have lived, including dinosaurs. A blue whale blows air out of its blowhole on top of its head, creating a tower of spray that is as tall as 5 men. What is the biggest land animal? The broadest, heaviest animal is the male African elephant, but the tallest is the giraffe. A giraffe is as tall as 3.5 average height humans. What was the biggest land predator? The biggest predator that ever lived on land was the Spinosaurus, a flesh-eating dinosaur. How big was the biggest shark? The largest shark that ever lived was the megalodon, which may have grown to 66 feet long. It died out more than 1.5 million years ago. What's the biggest insect? There are several contenders, but the atlas moth of Southeast Asia has the biggest wings with an area of 62 square inches. At the widest point, the moth's life wingspan is 10 inches across. However, the moth with the widest wingspan is actually the white witch, with a wingspan of 12 inches across. Female atlas moths are larger than the males. How big can spiders grow? The heaviest type of spider is the Goliath bird-eating spider, which can weigh 6 ounces. The biggest Goliath spider had a leg span of 11 inches. What's the longest wings ever? The largest flying creature was the pterosaur called Quetzalcoatlus, which lived 68 million years ago. Here's how Quetzalcoatlus' wingspan compares to some other giant flyers today. The largest Quetzalcoatlus had a wingspan of more than 33 feet. The wandering albatross has the longest wings of any living bird, with a wingspan of 11.5 feet. The great bustard is the heaviest flying bird, with a wingspan of 8.25 feet. The tiger moth biplane has 2 pairs of wings, and the wings of a Quetzalcoatlus stretch further than those of a tiger moth biplane. Tiger moth biplane is an airplane. What's the smallest bird? The bee hummingbird, which lives only in Cuba, is 2.25 inches long and weighs just 0.06 ounces. A bee hummingbird is smaller than a person's thumb. Which bird laid the biggest eggs? Eggs of the extinct elephant bird were up to 13 inches long. Elephant birds lived in Madagascar up until a few hundred years ago. In terms of volume, an elephant bird's egg is as big as 200 chicken eggs or 11 ostrich eggs. How far can a bird fly? Bar-tailed godwits are known to fly 7,258 miles nonstop from Alaska to New Zealand in the south on their yearly migration. Oh, wow. Which animal jumps the farthest? The snow leopard of Central Asia can leap farther than any other animal. It can cover more than 50 feet in one jump. The snow leopard can easily clear 7 cars in one leap. How big is a supertanker? At 1,246 feet long and 223 feet wide, the TI Oceania is the biggest supertanker afloat today. It can carry 3 million barrels of oil. That's a very big boat. How small is the tiniest computer? A computer with a pressure sensor, microprocessor, memory, battery, solar cell, and wireless radio measures just 0.04 inches squared. 5 thousandths of these computers would fit in a teaspoon if there were no gaps. The computer's battery can be charged by 1.5 hours of sunlight, hitting a tiny solar cell. How heavy is the Great Pyramid? Egypt's Great Pyramid is made up of 2,300,000 blocks of stone and weighs 5,750,100 tons. That's very heavy. The biggest stone in the pyramid weighs as much as 20 elephants. The pyramid stands at 481 feet high, the same height as a stack of 70 camels. It is almost solid stone aside from the small burial chambers and passages inside. It was built around 2560 to 2540 BCE as the tomb for the pharaoh Khufu. How tall is the tallest building? The Burj Khalifa in Dubai stands at 2,716 feet high to the very top of its spine. It has 163 floors that are used for homes, offices, and a hotel. How big is the biggest building? Boeing's Everett factory in Seattle has a volume of 472 million cubic feet. That's big enough to fit 55 soccer fields inside. How much gold is there? Experts estimate that there is just 188,800 tons of gold that have been dug out of the ground. A ball the length of a tennis court might not sound big enough for tons of gold, but gold is very heavy. 2 solid gold brick houses would weigh as much as 1 adult person. What? 2 solid gold house bricks. Oh, the bricks. 2 solid gold bricks would weigh as much as 1 person. I was going to say, that's not very much, but it is. All right. All the world's gold that was mined would make a solid ball the size of a tennis court. It says it twice. All right, and that was It Can't Be True by DK Publishing, Braille. Thank you.